is relevant. No matter what it is, no matter if it contradicts you, it doesn't matter, because everything can be true, even though nothing can also be true. Does that make any sense? No, of course, it doesn't make any sense. This is the postmodern culture we're living in. Anyone who goes into Starbucks and says, I believe that all these drinks are a cent today, or free, even better, will find themselves kicked out the door. They will find that this does not work. It just doesn't work in the real world. What has happened today is a lack of a gift that God has given us. This gift is called logic. Logic is very important when you're witnessing for many reasons. If all truths are relative, then indeed, if I can say something, you could say something, they can both be equally valid. If I say you're a sinner, you say, okay, I'm not, then who's right? No one knows. This is the reason that logic is valid in witnessing. We use many analogies and examples in our witnessing, such as the courtroom scene, which is what we normally use. We use the example of, if you did a lot of bad things in a courtroom, you killed 3 people, but you helped a few old ladies cross the street, paid your taxes, helped at a church, would that cancel out? Logically, in a courtroom, no. This is logic. This is a use where we show the person that their good deeds cannot outweigh their bad deeds. First of all, none of us can do enough good to ever cover our bad deeds because everything we do in our flesh is tainted by sin. This is logic. Also, the fact that Jesus can be our substitute by paying our fine is also logic because we show that it is logical. For the fine to be paid, the justice is satisfied. Logic is a gift from God that helps us reason. We need to obviously move past the intellect and into the heart eventually, but using logic can be a great way to move into the heart. It clears the barriers so that you can go straight for the heart. Keyan's going to explain some different details about logic and what it is in a moment.
Alaina already outlined pretty much what logic is and how it can be used, but I will show a little bit more in depth what logic truly is. So logic is the act of reasoning that something exists or does not exist. Logic is a way that we use to prove our point. Some people nowadays are trying to say that there is no logic. That is, they're using logic to prove that there is no logic, and that just doesn't make any sense. You have to watch a little bit because if you rely too much on logic, then it can kind of dull us and we don't really care about other people's feelings, which in witnessing is a little bit hard to do because you want to be straightforward and you want to use logic, but sometimes you have to be blunt and you have to hurt the other person's feelings, but you want to do it in a way that's kind and gracious. So how can we use logic in witnessing? We can use logic to prove how God exists. Like we gave you proofs of creation, we are using logic to prove them. We use the point of logic that everything didn't create itself. That is a point of logic. Without logic, our world would spiral apart. We would have absolutely nothing, and we would have no bridges, no planes or anything, because even in every aspect of life, you have to use at least a little bit of logic. If you say that, well, I believe that this plane will hold together against at 55,000 feet with just some gum and some toothpaste. That won't happen, right? If you try to do that, rest in peace, because that will not work. You have to use logic, and you have to figure out what will work and what will not. So logic has a prominent place in our culture, but we ignore it a lot because people are like, oh, what's my truth that you're okay and I'm okay and we're all just gonna go to heaven and have a good old time up there? And if you just disagree with me, then that's when you go to hell if you disagree with me. That's not how it works. You have to have truth that's above all other standards. The Bible is truth. It is the truth. Jesus is the truth, the life. Without him, then we have no morals, we have no life, and we have no logic. With no logic, we have nothing at all. So logic is the foundation of our culture. We have to have it, or everything else will blow apart.
So what are some of the dangers of logic? Logic is amazing, as Keyan put it. I personally am a person of logic. However, logic can be a cruel taskmaster. It's a wonderful slave, but a terrible master. The problem is evolutionists can make seemingly very logical arguments. Atheists, every religion can make a logical argument for their faith. The problem is sometimes their starting point is not correct. So how do we use logic rightly? How do we manage this gift that God has given us? First off, we need to make sure that we allow humility to rule our logic. Whenever we speak to people, we need to make sure that our words are full of grace and seasoned with salt. Truth is truth. This is true. But it doesn't mean that we have to go bulldozing over everybody just because we're right and they're wrong, which obviously we're believing or we're not telling them this. However, we need to make sure that we're humble. If you're humble without logic and you don't tell anyone the truth, that's a big problem. But if you use logic without humility, sometimes that can even be a bigger problem. The main reason that most people don't come to Christ is because of his followers, or his true followers that simply have not learned that we need to act with love and humility. We need to make sure that our arguments are sound and that our logic is correct whenever we're going to witness or we're engaging in a debate with somebody over their beliefs. And also, when we use our logic, we need to make sure that our end goal is to influence the heart of our listener. We need to behave with grace and humility. We need to act correctly, but using our logic as a barrier to knock down all other walls so we can get to their heart.